So let's talk about 5 confidence drainers. The reason I call it confidence drainers is because obviously it drains your confidence. And I know you just spent time identifying the times in your life where you were least confident. All right, we talked about those 3 things, but I want to add these 5 drainers, right, to your mindset, because if these things are existing, or I'm not going to say existing because like you can't control some of these things, but if you're allowing these things to control you, to control your mindset, to control, giving your greatness to the world, then it's going to be very, very hard for you to be confident. The first one, which is we all deal with this. I don't care who you are, how confident you are, how perfect you are, is fear, right? The F word, fear. And let me explain this for a second. I believe that there's at least 2 types of fears, at least for me. You have a smart fear, right? The fear that works for you. You got to realize what your brain is programmed to protect you, right? It's always programmed to keep you safe. And that's a good thing, and that could be a bad thing. So, quick story. I can't believe I'm even telling this right now, but this is Inner Circle, so I'm going to give y'all some behind-the-scenes stuff. Well, quick story. Like, a good fear, and I guess this is both. But the fear that was protecting me in a good way, you guys know I love to run. So I'm running my trail run. And again, like I love nature. I don't love everything in nature though. All right. So I'm not like an animal person. I'm not the person that sees like the armadillo and goes up to him, pets the armadillo. That's not me. Right. I see an armadillo, I'm probably either speeding up or going the other way. So I'm running this trail, and I've been running this trail for like, 5 years, 6 years. And I'm at a killer pace, by the way. Like I'm training for a half marathon. So I'm at a killer pace. I'm like, I'm killing it. So I see this guy coming on a bike, and the guy comes up to me, and he's like, I have my headphones on. So obviously like, I don't hear what he's saying. So I turn my headphones down. He's like, hey, he's like, hey, he's out of breath. He's like, if I was you, I wouldn't go up there. And I was like, why? He was like, first of all, I'm kind of angry because he's messing up my time. He said, I wouldn't go up there. I was like, why? He's like, there's a pack of coyotes up there. And he was like, I just wouldn't do it. He's like, I was on the bike, man. It's like, it's a whole bunch. And so a part of me was like, man, I ain't worried about those coyotes. But then a bigger part of me was like, you tired? And coyotes got their own mind. And I know a lot of people be like, oh, coyotes don't attack you. It's like the people, you go to their house and they say their dog don't bite, and the dog bites you anyway. I feel like animals have their own mindset. And so I was like, you know what? Obviously, this guy came in my path for a reason. God sent him here. So let me just run back. And I was like, I can actually run longer. So I had to run 7 miles instead of running 5. So I feel that was like a smart fear. So you have the fear that says, hey, don't cross the street during rush hour, right? The fear that keeps you alive. But if I'm being real with you, being straight up with you, there's a fear that's keeping you from living your best life also. And that fear is the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, which we're going to talk about, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of embarrassing yourself, the fear of all those things. And so even when it came to the trail, it's funny how this is a parallel. I started to think about that. I was like, and I love this trail. I was like, I can keep thinking that coyotes are up here, or I can actually change my mindset and be like, hey, if it comes across, I deal with them. So now I overcame that fear, and I'll tell you exactly how. And people ask all the time, too, about public speaking, right? The number one fear in the world is public speaking. You ask somebody to go speak in public. I just left for school, and this kid was trembling. Like, he was shaking. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like it before in my life. But I kind of understood him because I understand the fear of public speaking. Why do people fear public speaking? Something that we're going to talk about in a minute, but they fear judgment, right? They fear looking stupid. They fear people laughing at them, people talking about it. They fear not being perfect. That's what they fear. It's crazy. People will rather, like statistically, look this up. People would rather die than speak in front of people. That's crazy. Like people would rather be in the casket than give the eulogy. Like people would rather stand up, people would rather be laying in the casket dead than actually stand up and give the eulogy. That's crazy to me. But the reason is because of the outcome. So work with me for a minute here and think about this. So I had to evaluate that with me being a public speaker. I didn't always have this confidence. Like I used to be trembling too. I used to be practicing my speeches 30 times for 3 days and 3 months, like over and over and over again, because I was so afraid when I got on that stage. And actually my first big speaking engagement, some of y'all know this story. If you read my book, you know this story. In front of 3,000 kids, like I'm nervous. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna prepare myself. I'm gonna do everything right. And so like, I know my speech. It's a 5-minute speech, by the way. I know my speech like a rap verse. And so I get up there, step up. I'm like, okay. And I did the thing that most people shouldn't do when you're first doing something, is that you look out into the crowd. And I looked out, and even to this day, this is a little trick, side note. Like, I wear contacts, but on purpose, sometimes I don't wear my contacts because when I look out, I don't see people's faces. So if I'm boring, I don't see them like going to sleep. So everything looks blurry. But at this point in my life, I was younger, I saw everybody's expressions. And so all these kids are looking. If you never spoke in front of kids, it's probably the hardest audience to ever speak in front of, because they'll let you know. So I look out there, and as soon as I make eye contact with this one kid, he's looking at me like, what you gonna talk about? I went blank. Everything I prepared went out the window. And I had a choice in that moment. People always ask, like, how did you get your style from speaking from the heart? Because it was that moment. I had no choice. I had to come from my heart. And literally that moment changed my life. But it taught me a lot about fear. And fear is this. Write this down. Fear is creating a known result. Okay? I'm going to say it slow. Fear is creating a known result from a situation you haven't experienced yet. So, in a Trent term, it's just a straight up term, it's saying what it's going to be before you ever try to do it. So it's like a boxer saying they're going to lose the fight before they step into the ring. It's like me speaking, saying I'm going to suck before I ever step onto the stage. And what helped me come to this realization was, I'm telling y'all a whole bunch of stories, by the way, because I think they're funny stories. If y'all not laughing, I'm laughing inside. I'm laughing at myself. I'm one of those type of people. But I remember my skydiving experience. And this is where this whole fear thing shifted for me, because I used to be terrified of heights, like completely. Like, I was the guy that I don't care, like 2 stories. Like, I was the brother, like when we had a 2-story house and we would jump off the garage was 1 story, all my brothers would jump off. I used to be the one not wanting to jump off. We used to have a trampoline. We used to jump off. Some people used to jump off the roof to the trampoline. I would not do that. Like, I was afraid of heights. And so for my birthday, a while ago, one of my closest friends bought me a skydiving, out of all things, when somebody knows that I'm afraid of heights, buys me a skydiving, ticket, right? Takes me on a skydiving experience. And I'm trying my best. I'm not going to tell this whole story because some of you have heard this before, but I'm trying my best, right, to get out of this, because I'm like, bro, like, for a person that is afraid of heights, why would you go buy a skydiving ticket? Because I'm like, you about to lose your money, because I'm about to just ignore your calls and not show up. But I don't want to leave my boy out like that. Plus, he know where I stayed anyway, and he's going to call me out on social media. And so I go back and forth with him. And a funny thing was, if you ever go skydiving, there's a weight limit, right? I think it's like 230 pounds. And I'm like 225 at that time in my life. So I'm like, cool, I'm just going to eat a lot. Therefore, I can't go. Like, I can, I don't want to show them that I'm scared. That didn't work, by the way. I guess my metabolism was like way too high. Anyways, I'm making a long story longer. But we go out there and, we get fitted up. And I'm only thinking about everything that's going wrong. I'm thinking about the parachute not opening, and people are like, why would Trent go skydiving? Like, you ever like hear a story, you're like, why would they do that? That's kind of dumb. Why would they do that? So that was going through my mind, like, people are gonna be like, why would Trent go skydiving? Like, come on. Like, you see my skin color. Like, I'm not trying to stereotype anybody, but black people don't usually go skydiving. Just is what it is. And so I was like, people gonna be thinking this stuff. And I was like, man, what if the parachute don't open? Like, I've never fell out of plane. Like, I know how it feels to go off, like, fall down from a roller coaster. Like, it's gonna be crazy. My stomach is gonna drop and I'm gonna throw up. Like, I'm creating the most negative experience ever, right? How many of you have done that when you have fear in your life? We are creating the most negative experience ever. Whether it was a first date, it doesn't matter, right? You're creating this negative experience. You're creating this negative outcome. And so we go up in the plane and, we hover at about 8,000 feet. The first guy jumps out and he's like, ah, and I'm like, oh my Lord. And so, like, I'm not going to say what I did. But, got the BGs a little bit. I'll just put it like that. I got the BGs, and something slipped out a little bit. Just put it like that. Maybe that's TMI, but inner circle. And, like, I'm looking around. You ever, like, lose your manners on accident and you try to blame it on somebody else, so you start looking around. So I start looking around, and I guess the door being open on the plane, like, whatever. Okay, that's too much. Let me get back serious. So in this moment, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. So I'm like using all my mantras, like, let's get it, it's rehab time. Really wasn't working, but I'm trying to use it. I start scooting up. The guy is like, whoa, like, hold up, because you got to do a tandem jump. He was like, what you doing? I was like, I'm ready to go, let's get it. And he was like, nah, like, this is 8,000 feet. Your friend paid for 15,000 feet, I believe. And I look at him like, what? And to this day, I laugh when he said this, because it's so true. But I didn't want to hear it at the time. He was like, bro, if it's your parachute will open at 8,000 or 15,000 feet, you're going to die anyway. So he's like, you might as well go all out. And I was like, well, he does have a point. We get up to 15,000 feet, and it's go time. And in this moment, I realized that I had a choice. I could continue to create a negative experience. I can make this worse than what it is. Or I can take control over my mindset. I can take control over my perspective, which we'll talk about in another training this year. I can either make it my power or my prison. So in that moment, I said, why am I so afraid? And you can answer this for me. What was I telling myself? Parachute's not going to open. You're going to use the bathroom on yourself. It's going to be hard to breathe. Your stomach's going to drop. All these things. So immediately what I did was I flipped the script. I said, it's going to be the best thing ever. And I have two older brothers, and my brothers are scared too of heights. So I said, you know, I'm the younger brother, and this might be like a youngest sibling thing, but I'm like, man, I can go brag to them. I always wanted to, like, because they used to pick on me growing up. Like, I've done something that they can't do. Y'all scared. And that's all that I needed. So I jumped out the plane, and I keep saying make a long story short, but I'll drag this out. But it was the most incredible experience of my life. And it had me thinking about all the times in my life when I felt fear. And I realized, like, dang, yep, I was creating a negative experience. Yep, I was saying that it wasn't going to be fun. Yep, I didn't see the growth in it. Yep, all these things. And I guarantee you, in your life, you're doing the same thing with fear. See, if fear was a door, okay? If fear was a door, and understand, you're never going to walk through that door if there's something negative on the other side. Ever. You're not. Why would you? Right? You're smart. Why would you? But I promise you, you'll walk through that door if something positive is on the other side. Even if it isn't perfection on the other side, but you're saying, when I walk through this door, you know what? I'm going to grow. I'm going to get better. I'm going to have an experience. I'm going to create a memory. You'll walk through that door every single time. So I want you to think about right now, how has fear paralyzed your life? You know, fear kills more dreams than anything in the world. It's time for you to stop allowing fear to control so much of you. You know, I'm not going to tell another story because I don't want to be on here for 3 hours, but even with water, I had a situation where I almost drowned. And I didn't want to get back in any type of water because I was afraid, because I was tying that experience to something negative. And then I had to switch it around and say, you know what? The only way I'm going to get through this is if I go attack it. So you watching this, like, I want you to do something like today, this moment, something that you are afraid of, okay? Make sure it's safe. I don't want you blaming me. Make sure it's safe, though, right, in a way, because you're responsible for what you do. But I want you to attack a fear. I don't want you to run from it no more, because we talk about this in the rehab process. What you're going to learn a lot about this year is so many people run from it instead of running towards it, okay? So the first thing that drains you, that drains your confidence, that takes away from your confidence is fear, okay? The second thing that takes away from your confidence, that drains your confidence, that makes it almost impossible to be confident, is mistakes, okay? Listen to me on this. Too many times we're attaching our emotions to outcomes, okay? We're attaching our emotions to outcomes. And I always like to give you parables and stories to symbolize for you, to help you understand even on a deeper level. I remember, you can take any team. I'm going to use my own personal story. Any team. If you ask a team that's won a Super Bowl, or that's won a championship, or that's done something great, or you ask somebody who has achieved something in their life, I can guarantee you this. That team is going to tell you the most important game of their season was not the game that they blew somebody out. They're going to tell you the most important game in their season was the game that they lost. Okay? Because that loss taught them how to win. Now, in order to see things like that, you can't allow the highs to get you too high. You can't allow the lows to get you too low. You have to stay focused on where you want to go, right? You have to stay focused on what you want to accomplish. You look at the Patriots in the Super Bowl when they played Atlanta. They were down 28 to 3, I believe, something like that, going into the third quarter. I mean, I'm going to be real. I turned off the TV. You know, people that left the Super Bowl, people that paid $6,000 for tickets, they didn't left. But people ask, how did Tom Brady still have confidence in that moment? Because he wasn't defining the rest of the game by his mistakes, right? He wasn't defining, those moments of maybe an interception or a turnover. He wasn't attaching his emotions to that because, listen, most people in life are controlled by their emotions, right? You got to learn how to be emotional resilient. And if your emotions are controlling you, I can guarantee you this, right? With these mistakes that you're making, you're going to live an up and down life, right? You're dependent on happiness. I always say happiness is not something you ever should depend on. Why? Because happiness works off of what's happening. So if things are going right, you're going to be happy. If things are going wrong, you're going to be sad. I like to say, find joy. And a part of joy is detaching your emotions from certain outcomes. So when things aren't going right, people ask, how can I still smile? Because my emotions aren't attached to that moment. Because, listen, side note, how many times in your life where you had something go wrong that helped everything go right? Might be a relationship, right? I know me, right? Where I had to literally lose relationships that I cared about at that time. I remember my high school relationship. I remember, I thought I would never live without this girl. It was my high school sweetheart. And I remember we got into a little situation, and she broke up with me and with all that type of stuff. I thought my world was over. I was crushed. But if I would have stayed with her, I would never have met my beautiful wife and have this amazing family with my 3 kids. You see what I'm saying? So it took that loss, that setback, to gain something greater for my life. So maybe write down right now something, because this builds confidence in you moving forward. When you run into a roadblock, when you run into an obstacle, when you run into a setback, this builds this confidence because now you can look back on your life and say, hey, sometimes it takes the wrong path to lead my life to the right place. I had to go through that to birth something inside of me. I had to lose football. That's a perfect example. Right? That was a mistake, supposedly, but I had to lose what I cared about, my everything. I thought my life was over when I lost it, but y'all know the story. Really, my life was just beginning. So I don't want to tell you not to care too much, but some of us, we care too much. We care about what people are going to think. So I love to come to anything that I do carefree. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm reckless. It doesn't mean that I don't give my all. I always do that. I always give 100%. But what it means is that I don't care enough, right, to allow failure or mistakes to hold my life back. So number 2, what's mistakes? The third thing that I want to talk about, and I hope you guys are writing this down and thinking about this, because I just don't want you to listen. I want you to dial in and think about, okay, what does this mean to my life? If I'm you right now, okay, I hear what Trent is saying, but what does this mean to my life? How can I apply this to my life? What can I change in my life? You're not here just to sit here and listen, right? You're here because you want to apply. Third thing that drains people's confidence is opinions. Okay? Rejection. Opinions don't matter. Okay? You know how many opinions were thrown at me my whole entire life? You know how many people have told me over the years that I could never be the person that I am today? Oh, you look a certain way. You don't dress like a speaker. You don't talk like a speaker. You didn't go to school to be a speaker, even though I took speech communications, but that's a whole nother story. You know how many people have given me opinions? But I don't never allow their opinions to become my truth, because most people that are throwing opinions at you, they don't really know your life. But the problem that happens is, again, we allow like our self-esteem to become other esteem. And what I mean by that, you're allowing other people to dictate how you feel about yourself. You're allowing the things that people say about you to change how you feel about yourself. And so if you're always listening to opinions, and I'm not telling you to be like closed-minded where nobody can give you constructive criticism, like I understand that part. But if somebody's just giving you opinions and haters, and everybody's not going to like you. You're going to have haters. You're going to have people talk about you. You're going to have people waiting for you to fail. As soon as you stumble, they're going to be laughing at you. But the same people that are laughing at you when you stumble, guess what happens when you get back up? They probably jump on your bandwagon. I want you to understand that. You got to stop allowing all these things you can't control to control you. You got to stop valuing the opinions of other people, especially when they haven't lived it. When they haven't done what you're trying to do. You know, it's people that tell me, oh, Trent, your podcast sucks. Okay, cool. Guess what? I'm still doing my podcast. Hey, Trent, your merchandise sucks. Guess what? I'm still making hoodies. Because I understand that their opinions can't stop me. I understand that their opinions can't slow me down unless I give them the permission. You know, even on this side of it, like it might not be other people. Sometimes we're so afraid of no. We're so afraid of the word no. We're so afraid of rejection. But I believe that rejection is just redirection for what's really meant for your life. Think about that for a second. How many times in your life where something you've been rejected, right? You've been rejected and it led you to a better place. Or a certain door in your life was closed and you would have never found a door that was meant for your life if that door would have stayed open. So stop allowing no to control your life. And I like to say, fall in love with no. When people tell me no, I'm like, cool. I'm like that door-to-door salesman. You know, the person that goes like, because statistically, you know, eventually once you figure out your yes, the door-to-door salesman, he don't care about no. All he's trying to go get is yes. So, okay, cool. It's 7 no's and I get my yes. So he's trying to get through his no's as much as he can just to get his yes. You got to have that same mindset in life. Stop letting opinions control your life. Stop allowing no's to control your life. All right, the fourth confidence drainer that drains your confidence, this one's big because we all do it, whether we do it consciously or subconsciously, especially in this world of social media. Like you have no choice. Comparison. Where we're always comparing our lives. Especially, you know, the thing that happens is, you know, even with social media or even like someone you look up to, what you're doing is you're comparing your behind the scenes with someone's highlight reel. Like you're seeing their best, or you're comparing your year 1 with their year 20. And you're thinking that you should, you know, be at this level. And so you start feeling like you're less, or maybe it's a relationship, like you're comparing your marriage to their marriage or your relationship to their relationship. And I just noticed about comparison. Like comparison doesn't lead to confidence. Comparison doesn't help your life at all. If you're going to compare anything, compare the old you with the you that you're becoming, right? You'll never, ever be confident comparing yourself to others. Like comparison will literally stunt your growth. So what I want you to do right now is think about times in your life that you've compared yourself. How has it helped you? I can guarantee one thing that it did for you subconsciously is it made you feel like you're not enough. It made you feel like who you are is not good enough. So you start to become something that you're not, right? And becoming something that you're not will never help your life. And even if by becoming something that you're not, even if it takes you to a certain level, you're never going to be fulfilled. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. So please don't compare yourself. Okay, that's number 4. Because if you compare yourself, you will never be confident. Number 5. And this took me a while to get to. And I didn't really realize that this was taken away from my confidence until I really sat down and peeled back the layers on confidence, and it was really draining me. I like to call it TYCC, and that's short for things you can't control. Okay? There's certain things in life that are out of your control, right? What people say about you is out of your control. You know, putting something out to the world and how it's received is out of your control. And so many of us, we live in that space. We live in the space of the things that we can't control. And what usually happens is we allow the things that we can't control to control us. Like, you can't be confident with the things that you can't change. No way, because you have no power to change it. So the best thing to do is just let it go. Let it go. So if I'm you, when I'm going to certain situations, this is what I do. You know, even if it's an argument or disagreement or, you know, whatever, I'm asking myself, what can I control in this moment? What can I control in this situation? Before I step on stage, this calms down my anxiety. You know, when I'm anxious, when I'm excited, when I'm nervous, when I'm fearful, all these emotions are coming up. The thing that I tell myself backstage that calms me down, I say, Trent, what can you control right now? And the only thing in those moments I can control is just how I show up. It's being authentic. It's being real. It's being straight up. I can't control if the crowd likes me. I can't control, you know, if my mic messes up. I can't control if everything's going to go right. I can't. So if I'm staying in a state of trying to control the things I can't, what do you think is happening? I'm creating worry in my life. And when you create worry in your life, anxiety is in the near future, right? And so if you do these 5 things, right? If you, well, let me not do these 5 things. If you stop doing these 5 things, but you identify these 5 things, I promise you, you will start to find more confidence. So what I want you to do right now, all right, is to press pause. I want you to go on the worksheet. I want you to write these things down, and I want you to make these changes in your life and put some skin in the game. Get some leverage. Like, why do you have to stop being fearful? Like, why? What's the reason behind it? Because when you have a real enough reason, you'll find a reason not to be fearful. I mean, even think about fear that, like, say your kid was in a burning house. I mean, if you love your kid, most of you would go in that burning house. Is fear present? Absolutely. But you're not thinking about fear. Why? Because the reason on the other side is big enough. That's what I was trying to explain to you earlier. When the reason to go through that door is big enough, you will go through that door. Most times you won't feel fear. And even if you do feel fear, I want to be clear. It doesn't mean that something's wrong with you, because courage is feeling fear and still going to do it anyway. Remember the second thing was mistakes, right? Don't attach your emotions to those mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen. It doesn't have to define your growth. It doesn't have to define your success. Let it build you, not break you. The third thing is opinions. Like, people going to talk, let them talk. Their opinions have no power over your life unless you give them permission. The fourth thing is comparison. And the fifth thing is the things that you can't control. All right? Since we talked about the confidence drainers, now I want to change your mindset and talk about the confidence builders.